And we can now add 2 more to the growing list of useful idiots who can't seem to understand that being born with a talent doesn't make you an expert on the Constitution. Although the country community is known to lean right politically, there are always those who stray from the norm of common sense. This time President Barack Hussein Obama supporters, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill in their vastly superior intellect, offered a solution to the mass shootings that have been taking place in our great nation. And in doing so they pretty much pissed off 90% of their own fan base. McGraw and Hill said that following the massacre in Las Vegas where over 55 people were killed by a crazed mass shooter at an open-air country concert, they both became concerned for America's safety. Now isn't that sweet of them, although neither had any issues whatsoever when their Messiah Obama left millions like me without health insurance coverage. They have an issue with guns now. McGraw went on to state that he is an avid bird hunter but that some common sense is necessary when it comes to gun control. He added that gun advocates want to make it about the Second Amendment every time it's brought up, but he says adamantly that it's not about the Second Amendment. Really genius. Then what's it about? Maybe all those years you spent singing in law school can enlighten us common folk as to what the Second Amendment really means. As we previously reported, another celebrity ego-stroking awards show took place Wednesday night, and like all other celebrity gatherings to honor each other, they centered the show around bashing President Donald Trump. This is expected in liberal Hollywood, since stage presence always seems to present the opportunity to cause political chaos in front of the entire country. However, red-blooded Americans had hoped for more respect out of their favorite country stars who don't typically go down this liberal path of trashing the president. The hosts of the 51st Annual Country Music Awards (CMA) were warned about bringing politics into their awards presentation, and they didn't listen. Now, they're suffering some massive consequences for it, making the entire show about poking fun of our president. It's one thing for liberal actors and rappers to make their awards show about hating on Trump since their face base agrees with their disrespectful views. The same can't be said for the majority of country fans who are typically conservative and support our president and appreciate what he's done to make America great again, as he promised he would. With total disregard for who was in the CMA executive's orders, hosts Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood suggested Trump's a cheater in a performance and put on skits poking fun of some things he's done in the public eye. They may have thought they were pretty clever, but they aren't laughing now, just 48 hours after making idiots of themselves on stage at our president's expense. Opposing Views reports the duo started the show wearing eclipse sunglasses, referencing the time Trump ditched a pair to look directly at the August solar eclipse, reports Daily Mail. Afterwards, the stars sang a rendition of Underwood's hit 2005, Before He Cheats, with the lyrics rewritten to mock Trump. Right now he's probably in his PJs, in cable news, reaching for his cell phone, Paisley sung, before Underwood joined in. It's fun to it, that's for sure, till Little Rocket Man starts a nuclear war. Maybe next time he'll think before he tweets. The duo's antics came despite a memo the Country Music Association sent to the media prior to the show, requesting that journalists avoid discussing the Las Vegas tragedy, gun rights, political affiliations or topics of the like in the reporting on the show, according to the Nashville Scene. Paisley didn't just go against the association's request with his anti-Trump antics, he was quick to condemn it as well and do what he wants. Stars always think they are above the rules, and we've seen what that has done to the NFL. Now, the country industry could soon face the same fate, or at least these two singers for starters. Paisley and Underwood warned they would pull off such jokes ahead of time despite the Country Music Association's desire to make the show apolitical, insisting that they weren't making political statements. According to ABC News, "We've always said that we want to make fun of things that are funny," Underwood defiantly announced before the show. "It's not about any political party or any person or anything. It's just about making fun of things that are funny." Just as furious fans have turned every football game off, they did so to the CMAs in an immediate reaction to their insulting acts to the man they voted for and are proud of. Opposing Views caught some of the reactions that filled the internet as real-time ratings for the awards show began to drop from the mass exodus of offended country fans. "Well, even the CMA Awards has to open up by mocking the president," wrote one person on Twitter. Time to find something else that won't involve politics. So very disappointing that the CMAs brought politics to the show, said a commenter in Daily Mail's comments section. I won't again, nor support you with my money. As Trump supporters publicly expressed their views, liberals were quick to condemn them in support of the show's sickening message. Mocking, one commenter questioned of an accusation a former fan made of the host's act. Hardly. It was all in fun, and it was funny, unlike the nonsense you see out of the idiots in Hollywood. There was nothing mean-spirited about it. That was a tasteful and funny satirical performance, added another. Nothing wrong at all. Happy to see country music artists speaking out about this vile, atrocious administration, commented another. Country fans are the ones hurt the most by these awful policies handed out by original impeachment coming soon. It's disturbing that not a single awards show in the 8 years Barack Obama was president ruthlessly mocked him, as almost every one of them in the past 10 months of Trump's presidency has. There would be outrage for days if the tables were turned on this. These country stars didn't listen to the warnings from their show association, but more importantly, they didn't learn from the fallout of the NFL from pissed patriots, and now their industry could soon pay a similar price. Hill then went on to reveal that they both have friends who attended the Route 91 Harvest Festival on October 1 when a crazed madman opened fire from his hotel room at Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. She then went on to claim that the doctors that treated the wounded saw wounds you would only see in war, and because of this, military weapons should not be in the hands of civilians. It's everyone's responsibility, including the government and the National Rifle Association, to tell the truth. We all want a safe country. Really? Like in Chicago. Funny how through all those shootings while Obama was in office, even Newtown, these two s decided to become vocal now. Convenient, don't you think? Please share if you agree entertainers should just shut up and sing. We have no tolerance for comments containing violence, racism, vulgarity, profanity, all caps, or discourteous behavior. Thank you for partnering with us to maintain a courteous and useful public environment where we can engage in reasonable discourse. Sometimes, to prevent something bad from happening, you've got to try and understand the mind of the person who might perpetrate it. For instance, if I wanted to show off how fast my car was, I might choose to race some car that is known to have less power than mine. Probably not a Ferrari. If I wanted to show off my physical strength, I wouldn't choose a bodybuilder to pick a fight with. And if I wanted to shoot up a building, I wouldn't do it at a gun show. Let's take a moment to just think about the two recent shootings in Sutherland Springs and Las Vegas. Both took place where the intended victims weren't expected to be armed, and both were wildly successful on the part of the shooter. In the past, we've also seen mass shootings happen in theaters and schools, which are both places where guns are typically banned. Are you seeing a trend yet? Bullies pick on people they don't expect to fight back. If we truly want to prevent mass shootings, we need to give people the ability to fight back, just like the Founding Fathers did. According to USA Today, the Michigan Senate Committee is trying to do just that. They've approved a bill that would allow concealed carry of firearms in gun-free zones. In the wake of mass shootings in Las Vegas and Texas that left dozens of people dead or injured, a Michigan Senate committee approved bills Tuesday that will allow gun owners to carry concealed weapons in gun-free zones such as schools, churches, daycare centers, bars, dorms and stadiums. The shooting at a Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, on Sunday, which left 26 people dead and 20 more injured, makes State Senate Majority Leader Alan Meekoff, a Republican from West Olive, Mich., more certain that now is the time to take up the gun legislation. Some have said it's insensitive to bring up to these issues now, but I feel quite the opposite, he told a standing room only crowd in the Senate Government Operations Committee. The recent events will allow us to look at how we can deter those who wanted to harm. And responsible, well-trained, licensed concealed pistol holders can be one of those deterrents. Obviously, most of us have not been the victim of a mass shooting, but we can guess that what those people would want is for no one else to ever have to live through that horror. In the case of the shooting in Texas, the only thing that stopped the gunman from killing even more people was a card-carrying member of the NRA pulling out his legally obtained and well-loved firearm and returning fire. This bill isn't out of the woods yet though. While it has had surprising support, it's not without its opposition either. Some consider any firearms to be bad for business in places like schools. The bills taken up in the Senate Government Operations Committee passed on a party-line vote, with Republicans supporting the three-bill package and Democrats opposing it. The bills also would close the open carry loophole, effectively barring gun owners from openly carrying their weapons in gun-free zones. That's the part that causes the schools to shut down and lose a day of educational experience for students, and that's problematic, mcgraw said. He gained support from gun rights groups, including the National Rifle Association and the Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners. The idea of having the ability to arm a well-qualified, well-trained individual is tantamount to setting out a scenario where we no longer set up a sheep for the wolf, said Robert Rudofsky of the gun owners group. Gun-free zones should be called mass murderer empowerment zones, said Steve Doolan, spokesman for the gun owners group. But far more people were at the committee hearing to speak out against the bill, including school groups and Moms Demand Action, which has been fighting for more gun controls. Changes are going to happen, but we're concerned this change could create more accidental incidents, and the additional training doesn't come close to training an individual for high-intensity situations, said Don Wattruber, executive director of the Michigan Association of School Boards. Unless you're trained for a military or police perspective, you're not well trained. We've all heard it said that if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself, and the same goes for personal safety. That's always been the mantra of Americans who hold the Second Amendment near and dear to our hearts. Personally, I have the utmost respect for my local law enforcement and find their attendance at my local church a great solace, but they just can't be everywhere at once. As it was so well said about the recent Texas shooting, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. We can't all be law enforcement, but we can, as adults, get our concealed carry permits and help protect those near and dear to us. Here's more from our source about the details of the bill before Michigan state lawmakers. Emily Durbin, Michigan chapter president of Moms Demand Action, said the debate was definitely on the wrong track. 2 days after the latest shooting, we're here not having a conversation about keeping guns away from domestic abusers, increasing background checks or banning bump stocks, she said. Instead, we're urgently discussing what the gun lobby wants, and that's a desire to have more guns in more places, no questions asked. Michigan Gov. Rick Snyder, a Republican, vetoed similar legislation in 2012, just 4 days after a horrific shooting in Newtown, Con, when a heavily armed man muscled his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School and killed 20 first graders and 6 adults. Snyder said that bill had a fatal loophole that didn't allow for those institutions to opt out of the new legislation and prohibit weapons from their buildings. His spokeswoman, Anna Heaton, said Tuesday that Snyder hasn't seen the latest version of the concealed carry bills and hadn't taken a position on them. mcgraw said he has talked with Snyder about the new legislation and that he's not necessarily on board with it. The new legislation would allow schools to prohibit students, both minors and adults, from carrying concealed weapons in schools. The bill also is expected to be amended on the Senate floor, perhaps as soon as Wednesday, to allow schools to prohibit employees from carrying concealed weapons in schools. The legislation also would allow private businesses, such as bars, to declare themselves gun-free zones. We're not going to preempt a private property owner's right to post for a weapon-free zone, said mcgraw's spokeswoman, Amber McCann. The additional training for the concealed carry license would be 4 more hours of classroom sessions and more time on the gun range. Tom Lambert, president of the Michigan Open Carry Organization, opposed the bills because they would bar gun owners from openly carrying their weapons. He supports gun owners being able to carry guns however they want. It is asinine to me that we would create an uneven playing field and give mass murderers an advantage, he said. I would agree guns should not be in our schools. The problem is we can't stop somebody who is truly intent on evil. But the Michigan Education Association had a different perspective. Education and parent groups have joined us in opposing this misguided legislation because they, too, understand that the answer to gun violence is not more guns in schools. In fact, that's a recipe for disaster. Michigan Education Association President Paula Herbert said in a statement, "The only people who should be allowed to carry firearms in public schools are police officers and school security personnel, period. USA Today. What to do about Colin Kaepernick? That's the question on the minds of many football executives in the United States today, because the controversial player has stirred up such a stink, and he's not going to be soon forgotten. To be perfectly honest, from a purely PR perspective, the day Kaepernick knelt for the national anthem was the day he endowed his career with brilliance, because from that day forward we have not stopped mulling over what to do about Colin Kaepernick. While the obvious answer to that question is the one that the 49ers were contemplating when Kaepernick chose to be a free agent, fire the unproductive player, the Social Justice Warriors League of America seems to have gotten together and decided that he is their mascot and must therefore be protected at all costs. The third-string backup quarterback, who according to his own coach was fired because he couldn't play in the pocket, now has a toehold to say his firing was illegal. And all because he knelt. That's a story we're all too familiar with. What we're not very familiar with until now is other football players calling Kaepernick out on his crap, but that's just what NFL legend Warren Moon did in a recent interview. According to the conservative Daily Post, Moon thinks that Kaepernick doesn't actually want to play in the NFL, otherwise, he would have played his cards very differently. Kaepernick was not a very good football player and was not going to be in the NFL for very long due to that reality. He then began this mindless kneeling during the national anthem as he proclaimed the falsehood of white privilege and other untruths, and it has become all that he is known for. His playing is still subpar. No team wants him due to his lack of talent, so now he is angry and suing the league, according to the Daily Caller. To him, the fact that he is a lackluster player is not why he isn't playing, because he cannot be that real with himself. Instead, he stretches the truth and implies that he is out of the league for other reasons, which is 100% untrue. Football legend Warren Moon chimed in and observed, if he was gonna file a lawsuit, he maybe should have waited till this season was over if he did want to play this year, because it was almost like, does he really want to play if he's gonna go and sue the league and then also try to get signed by a football team? The two just don't seem to mix. Most of us probably do assume that there is some nuance here that we're missing, maybe since we've never experienced the NFL, we don't really understand what it's like to be in Kaepernick's cleats. We do, however, know what it's like to give respect to whom respect is due, and it's a trait that we require of anyone who plans to make the big bucks playing a game that people play for free all the time. The disgraced kneeler is suing because he falsely claims that the league is colluding against him, when in fact, he just isn't good enough to earn a uniform. Somehow, suing the prospective employer is the best way to get one's job back, at least if one is Kaepernick. It is so sad to see him unable to accept the truth about his talent, or lack thereof. If he had not race-baited in a bunch of unhappy protesters who feel that detestable people like Mitchell Brown did not deserve shot after robbing a store and charging a cop, no one would even know who he was. He would be recalled as that one quarterback, what's his name, with the dumb hair. Colin Kaepernick spent most of his playing time face down because he was often sacked, could not scramble well, and played poorly. The fact that not one person on his side, no matter how much they like sports, can name many of his stats is proof of his inadequacy on the field. For that matter, he is a person who many loathe, and his jersey is even used as a doormat. As it stands, that seems like an insult to doormats. There are a million reasons why a player could be cut from a team, not the least of which is his disrespect to someone that the coach or the owner requires that he show respect to. As much as we would all like to believe that Kaepernick isn't playing in the NFL this season because he was disrespectful to the flag and the national anthem, the more logical answer seems to be that he's not playing because he's not a great player, and all of this is fluff, meant to distract us from a washed-up has-been whose only accomplishment in life is to single-handedly bring down a once-beloved institution named the National Football League. RIP HT Conservative Daily Post. Sometimes even the greatest friendships fail, and duos like Sonny and Cher find themselves at an impasse where they just can't get along. That seems to be the case with National Football League Commissioner Roger Goodell and what was formerly known as America's team owner, Jerry Jones. Jones is the longtime owner of the Dallas Cowboys and has worked quite a bit with Goodell. He knows what the good, the bad, and the ugly are in the NFL, and he knows who is responsible for it. Every team owner has a vested interest in the league doing well, and at this point, it has become clear that Goodell isn't what's is good for the league. the national anthem protest that led to the largest nationwide NFL boycott in history has hit the league's bottom line hard, and the trickle-down effect to the teams has been incredibly detrimental. That means that the commissioner, who is supposed to be looking out for the good of the league, isn't doing his job, and Jones intends to do something about it. Daily Mail reports that Jones, who has been threatening to sue the NFL, has now decided the best course of action will be to block Commissioner Goodell's contract from being extended. It's safe to say that Goodell isn't thrilled with the proposition. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones is reportedly threatening to sue the NFL and several owners over contract negotiations with embattled Commissioner Roger Goodell, going so far as to hire high-profile lawyer David Boies, who defended scandalized Hollywood executive Harvey Weinstein against accusations of UAL harassment. Goodell's contract is set to expire in 2018, and although Jones is not on the committee responsible for negotiating a new deal, the Cowboys owner is threatening to serve legal papers if the committee extends the NFL commissioner, according to the New York Times. Jones declined to comment through a team spokesman. A spokesman for Boies also declined to comment. The NFL protest wasn't the first issue that Jones had with the commissioner. Undoubtedly, the commissioner has to make some tough choices, even ones that might infuriate the teams or the owners, and up to now, everyone has accepted that. However, the differences between now and then is that when it came to tough decisions that were detrimental to an individual time, like benching a player, Goodell has no problem with it. But when a whole slew of owners asked him to make a decision that would be good for the league but would tick off the social justice warriors, the man seems to have his hands inexplicably tied behind his back. Jones's issue with Goodell ostensibly began when the commissioner suspended Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott for 6 games back in August after the former Ohio State star was accused of domestic violence by his former girlfriend, Tiffany Thompson. Elliott, however, has remained on the field thanks to a series of rulings and court appeals. Last week, the second-year running back was granted an emergency injunction that lifted the suspension again and allowed him to play in Sunday's 2,817 win over the visiting Kansas City Chiefs. According to the report, Jones told the owners of the Chiefs, Atlanta Falcons, New York Giants, New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Houston Texans that legal papers had been drawn up and would be served if the negotiating committee decided to extend Goodell's deal. Jones was a non-voting member of the owners' committee that is negotiating Goodell's extension, but the 6 aforementioned owners recently revoked that status after he told them of his plans to sue. According to the report, Goodell's salary is no longer disclosed publicly since the NFL changed its tax status in 2015. But he did earn $34.1 million in 2014 and was paid a whopping $174.1 million over the first 7 years of his tenure as commissioner. Jones has referred to Elliott's suspension as an overcorrection for Goodell, who admittedly mishandled the suspension of former Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice back in 2014. Goodell first suspended Rice only 2 games after a video emerged of the former Rutgers star dragging his unconscious fiancée out of an elevator at an Atlantic City casino. However, that suspension was extended indefinitely after another video was released depicting Rice striking his fiancée in the elevator. Rice has been out of the NFL ever since. Jones has questioned the suspension of Elliott, who has maintained his innocence. In fact, Ohio prosecutors decided against pursuing a case against Elliott last year. Zeke is a victim of an overcorrection, Jones said in an October radio interview. Perhaps Jones is right, and Goodell could have fallen back on his desire to only do what was best for the league, and that Elliott was in the wrong place at the wrong time to get the kind of reputation that the league wanted no part of. He still could have probably gotten away with that reasoning had it not been for this confounded protest. This commissioner sticking to these guns and letting the players do something that is ripping the league apart is proof positive that whatever is motivating Goodell isn't what's good for the league, and Jones plans to do something about it. HT Daily Mail.